Hi, everyone. I am Jessica Paxton. I am the product marketing manager at Smith.ai. Smith.ai is a 24/7 virtual receptionist chat and outreach campaign service. We answer calls, website chats, SMS messages, and more on behalf of businesses. And today we are going to talk about all sorts of stuff from marketing trends to how to use artificial intelligence to lead intake and what your intake system might look like and where those holes might be and how you can improve your digital presence. We've got a ton we're going to talk about. And today we have BluShark Digital with us, and I'll let them go ahead and introduce themselves.
Hi, everybody. My name is Nalini. I am the Chief Strategy Officer here at BluShark. We are a full-service digital agency that kind of helps you stand out on Google. So we're there trying to get you the visibility on page one so that you can generate more leads. And then once you have all those leads, you'll need an intake system. And so we work well with Smith.ai. Really happy to be here today. We are specific to legal as BluShark Digital, but we have sister companies that also handle the home service areas of BluShark Digital and MedShark Digital for elective medical. A plethora of different industries that we can help, and everything is obviously, as we talk about Google, it can apply to anybody. So I'm excited. I speak at about 30 legal conferences. My fun is in chasing Google and figuring out what their next move is going to be. And I'm actually joined today by one of our account managers, Will. So I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, how's it going, guys? My name is Will. So as Nalini mentioned, I'm an account manager for BluShark Digital. So what that really means is that I'm working in the day-to-day with our clients, working through all the problems that they may encounter with intake and lead generation and all that fun stuff. So excited to talk about some of my experiences with you guys, what we see on a daily basis, and sort of our suggestions for how we can continue to improve upon the process that's so important.
Great to have both of you here. Now, as we go through this, it's going to be a Q&A style webinar today. If anyone in the audience has questions, put it in the chat or put it in the Q&A module. We are more than happy to answer questions as we go along. If there's something specific that you hear and you want to know more about, you want us to elaborate on, or maybe you have a burning question that you're hoping we talk about today, go ahead and put it in the chat. We'll answer them as we go through. Don't wait till the end. Just go ahead and put it in there now if you have it. We want to make sure that we do get to everyone's questions. So like I said, put those in the chat. So let's just go ahead and start off with talking about the trends that are happening in marketing right now. So I know there's a ton going on with AI, and I'd love to get your perspective on what kind of trends we're looking at right now in the marketing space.
Yeah, absolutely. When we speak of digital marketing specifically, right, because there's so many buckets, and we focus on that, there's always a new update from Google, right? Google's got a new way that you can teach them that you're the smartest person in the room and that your business should be showing for someone searching for your services. With that respect, there's local SEO, which is that 3-pack and your Google business profile. There's lots of fun stuff going on there right now in terms of trending items in digital. And then, of course, everybody and their mother is talking about ChatGPT, which is not a Google product, but is this new, fun, exciting item where you can type in a question and it will give you a full-fledged book report on that topic. But kind of want to discuss that a little bit today because I have lots of thoughts on it. In terms of AI and how much you want to rely on AI in your business. A business is built on processes. You're only as strong as your weakest link, right? And when you think about that, when you think about all these new, fun, exciting features that are coming out, we're not ready to just let AI run our businesses, right? We're not ready to kick out every single employee and say, okay, well, this program is going to run this. There always needs to be some sort of human layer to your AI processes. And I will say with ChatGPT, I've had so many of our clients come to us and say, hey, well, you know what? Why do we have people writing content anymore? Let's just type in, car accident lawyer and see what it does. And then we'll put it on the website. And there's a lot more that goes into writing. One, ChatGPT is not 100% inaccuracy, right? We're finding lots of different, you'll see case studies that sometimes it can be the wrong answer. ChatGPT is also pulling information from a variety of sources, which means sometimes they'll give you a duplicate answer that they'll give somebody else. So if your business and 6 other businesses take the same answer and they copy and paste that onto their site, you're going to run into a duplicate issue, right? Google doesn't like when content is complete copy and paste, because does that really make you an authority? Are you giving good quality information there? So, that's the hype right now I hear, is that there's lots of AI programs out there. And I think we just have to be asking a lot of questions about, should we be using these? Should we be using them standalone, especially? Or do we use them in conjunction with something in a safe way? Jessica, did you have thoughts on that as well, in terms of just how, because you guys are Smith.ai, and so I know that people probably ask, what does that mean for your business?
Yeah, absolutely. We do use artificial intelligence at Smith.ai. We do not use ChatGPT. We are very, very aware of what's going on right now in the AI, in technology, and you really want to make sure what you're using is protecting your data. You want to make sure you're paying attention to the privacy policies, what's happening to what you're putting into the artificial intelligence, because if you're putting in data and then that data is then being shared with other organizations, other companies, your data then is not secure. So you really want to make sure that whatever you're choosing to use is secure, and is in your best interest. Just think about privacy and protecting your business.
Mm-hmm. And AI can mean a lot of things, right? Artificial intelligence is simply coding a product that can learn, right? And that can be at a very small level where it's not outrageous. Yeah. It doesn't have all, free will to learn all the things. You can control what it's learning, right? And point it in the right direction. And then there is wild AI out there. So from my understanding, you guys are using it in your chat capacity, but it is to learn each individual firm's personality, which I think is a big deal, because every business, right? You guys stand for different things. You care about different things. You prioritize different products and different values, right? That's why they say as soon as you open a business, you should write your own values. So I think being very specific to each business is really important.
Exactly. And just like you said, when you're talking about using AI and you're talking about using artificial intelligence, well, AI is artificial intelligence. I was going to say automation. It doesn't necessarily have to be this sci-fi, ultra futuristic sounding thing.
Right.
We use AI in our everyday lives to make our day-to-day lives easier. So even something as simple as going on Zapier and creating a Zap that can take a previously manual process and make it an automated process. So something that a human used to do that now a computer can do, it can be that simple. It doesn't have to be futuristic. It doesn't have to be Skynet or robots taking over the world. So really think about it on the most basic level, is what can we do on a small scale as well. I know a lot of times when we think about AI, people get fear in their eyes and they start thinking about, well, it's going to take jobs and I can't have the robots taking over my business. No. That's not what we're even thinking about. We're thinking about these small little tasks of, maybe we're moving data from one system into another system. Like today we're going to talk about intake. So maybe we'll talk about moving data from one place into an intake system. Yes. Simple as that. No more human movement. Okay. So that is, we can talk more about that in a little bit. So, and I think that actually is what the next topic we're going to talk about is, incorporating automation into marketing and intake, and how we can do that so that we're using less human touch and less of our time, because that's ultimately what it boils down to, right? Is how can we free up our time to do more meaningful tasks?
Yep.
So
No,
I'll let you,
absolutely.
you've got a lot to say on that.
Absolutely. And so part of me said, you can't just get rid of all of your employees and make everything run by an AI system, right? There needs to be layering of human check and balances on everything that you're doing. SEO in general requires a great deal of human interaction because we're looking at your competitors. We have to be thinking about what are they doing versus what are you doing and what can we add in there. But in terms of processes and being able to look at data, I think Will can speak much better to this because he's doing this on a daily basis on his monthly calls with clients. But when we have to have all these systems talk to each other and working with dev, how do you take us through the journey of basically, okay, a lead comes into the website. How are we helping the firm or the business automate that information in their systems?
Yeah, and as you said, it's all super important to make sure that not only is everything able to function together, but they're able to function together correctly. Because all this data that comes in we have to make sure that it's able to share with itself correctly. So obviously, when the lead first comes in through the website, through a contact form is typically going to be the most common place where that comes in. It's going to go in from a contact form, and we want to make sure that that contact form is fully integrated with your intake system that you're using, right? Where are you storing the leads, and where is this lead first going to make its way to your intake team? From there, it's super important to make sure that your intake system is also fully integrated with your case management system. We want to make sure that this all triggers each other and is integrated within itself so that the intake person isn't going and doing a bunch of extra work and adding all this information in. Not only is that going to create extra work, but it may create some misinformation in terms of not the same data being with itself or also in multiple places at the same time. So definitely important to make sure that everything is fully integrated.
Yeah, examples of that misinformation can be, all right, well, it did go through the process, everything triggered correctly, and then your intake person goes and adds that lead in again to the system, right? So then as you have intake person number 2 talk to that individual a week later, they're adding notes in one file, while other notes are in a different file. And so you have 2 separate files open for the same person. This can lead to a bad user experience, right? Then we talk about reviews. And so not just saying, oh yeah, it's integrated, but checking it regularly and making sure that everything is triggering correctly is extremely important too.
Definitely.
Yeah, and again, I think the human error element also comes into play when you have that manual process of moving information from point A to point B. That also can happen. So how does a firm begin to incorporate automation or AI? If I'm a brand new firm and I'm looking to get started, or to incorporate this, what should I do?
Yeah, so one of the things that Will just said, there's either system 1, system 2, system 3, right? A lot of times when people come to us, they don't even have these systems in places. They don't have an answering service. They don't have a case management system, or, if you're not a law firm, then just a system that manages all your files, right? Is that in a filing cabinet next to your desk, or is that digital? So a lot of people will also use something like Google, right? You can use Google Drive to keep track of everything, but then that's where Jessica mentioned earlier is Zap, right? And I don't know if you guys know what Zapier is, but that's a great resource. It's basically coding for dummies, essentially, where it will put 2 technology products together, and the integrations there already. You literally click on something that someone has created already before, and it will make your 2 systems talk together, right? So it's a lot more simple and a lot of things are populated there with Google Drive or simple programs. But I think if you're to start and you want to be automated, you need to first make sure that you have all of the products in place, right? And you want to make sure that these products, it's asking the right questions when you're vetting these companies and who do I want to use? And one of the things you want to write down, do they have an open API system? What that means is that they have an opening to work well and easily with other technology products. If they do not have an open API, think of it like an outlet, right? An open API means there is an outlet. You can plug it right in. There is no outlet at all, it means you have to build that outlet, and it gets a lot more difficult, especially in technology when people are updating their products. So you want to be able to put the right products in place. You want to ask the right questions and make sure that the first product you go with is the one that you want long term, because changing with all your data and moving things can be a nightmare from an administrative, from every aspect, right, within a business. So just making sure that you're getting the right products in place. We're happy to talk about those types of things afterwards too.
Right. So open APIs, I would rebuttal that and say open APIs are great if you have like a IT resource. If you don't have an IT resource, then you want to ask, what native integrations do you have? Or do you have a Zapier integration? Because a Zapier and native integration means you don't need to know coding and you don't need to have that IT resource. You could build it yourself. You could make those connections between the systems yourself.
No, that's great.
The open API is, if you're a larger org, like I said, or if you have someone on your team, or if you're outsourcing to someone that could build those connections for you, then yes, that is the right question. But I just wanted to add that because for me, if I can't write code, open API.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's more for us, right? When you work with an SEO company, the SEO company is your IT. They will help set up, but you're absolutely correct for smaller businesses. And for your question too, you said, if you're just starting and getting into this, what's the easiest thing? And I've noticed that a lot of products on their website now will even have a page that says, here's who we integrate with natively, right? We have a partnership with this company and this company and this company. We integrate with Salesforce very easily, things like that. Yeah. So if you could just click a button instead, no coding, absolutely. It's the easiest.
Right. Great point.
Great point.
Yeah. And just like you said, though, you've got to know going into it, at least a basic idea of here's my processes and here's my long-term plan of I need to connect all these pieces and I need to make sure they all connect. They're all going to be able to connect long-term.
Right.
Like if you get a piece of software and that piece of software is on an island over here and does not play well with anything else, it doesn't play well with your billing system, it doesn't play well with your website, it doesn't play well with anything else, it's going to be on an island over here, it's going to be a pain point. So that is really, really great advice for when you're just getting started. Absolutely. So the next thing we had on our agenda to talk about today was, and you guys, for the attendees, please do ask questions if you have them. So when you take on a new client, and what are typically their biggest challenges?
Yeah, I can speak to this one. So I would say when we take on a client, whether it be a client in the early stages of their business or a client even in like the later stages of their business, there's really three main issues that we run into that we need to help them work through. So the first is going to be generating leads, which is, kind of the most obvious one. How can we get more leads in? The second one is going to be tracking ROI. So, what sources are these leads coming from and what's the ROI on these sources? And then the third is the one we've talked about a little bit up to this point, which is going to be the intake process, right? How can we take these leads and help convert them into actual dollars?
Okay, so let's break these down then into let's break each one of these down into its own little mini conversation. Lead generation. What are the most common lead generation problems that businesses that come to you face?
Mm-hmm. So I would say the one that stands out to me the most that I typically see is a business having too many eggs in one particular basket. So what that kind of means is maybe they're being overly reliant on short-term solutions. Like let's say you're a law firm and you are overly reliant on referrals coming in through the door, right? Or paid ads. What happens then if the referral source runs dry or if paid ads are no longer working? So I think it's really important to make sure that that you're diversifying where your leads are coming from, right? So I think that that's where SEO can help provide a lot of value as well, is that SEO has the ability to help you generate these leads, you know, for the long term, rather than relying on what I've mentioned is like short-term leads, which may be things like pay-per-click, referral, other sources like that.
Okay.
No, that's great.
Oh, did you have something to add as well?
No, I was gonna say that's great. I think diversifying leads is the most important thing. You can't put everything in one place, right? So spread yourself out.
Yeah, exactly. You mentioned tracking ROI and sources. Could you elaborate more on that as well?
Yeah, so one thing that we see a lot of the time when clients come over to us is just a little bit of lack of organization, or really understanding, is maybe a better way to put it, of their existing lead sources. So they may know, hey, I'm spending $5,000 a month on PPC, or I'm spending, you know, $4,000 a month on LSA, and they know they're spending this money, but they don't really have much of an idea of how many leads this $5,000 a month that they're spending is actually generating, right? They just look at it in terms of one big bucket of money that's being spent. So the first thing that I like to do when we're working with clients on this issue is trying to get them as organized as possible. And really, it's our job to help present them with the information to help keep them organized, right? So how many leads are we generating through this $5,000 a month that we're spending on PPC? How many leads are coming in through organic calls, or how many leads are we seeing from referral, or from, you know, different website directories, things like that. And that's really the first step, because once you have an understanding of that step, that's when you're able to take a look at it a bit deeper, and identify what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, and sort of you can go at it from there, right? So there's a lot of tools out there that are capable of helping to present you with this information. I know that we usually use a tool called CallRail that allows us to see the sources of where leads are coming through and all that. So really, that's the big thing, is just getting organized, understanding where your leads are actually coming from. And then once you know where your leads are coming from, that's where you can address your weaknesses, or see what else needs to be done to help diversify it, as I was talking about previously.
And one thing I would, no, go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm really glad you mentioned CallRail, because they're a partner of ours as well. We love CallRail. I actually have a webinar with them next week. I will dig up the URL for that and put it in the chat as soon as I can find it. And our webinar with them next week is to talk about call tracking. And I know there's a lot of Smith.ai clients on the webinar today. So we actually support call tracking numbers. So if you're using a call tracking software like CallRail, and you have those tracking phone numbers, and when Smith.ai are taking the calls, the tracking number comes to us. And then when we send that information to CallRail, it maintains the tracking number throughout the life cycle of the call, so that you know exactly where the leads are coming from. So I will dig up that webinar. So if anyone is interested in learning more about CallRail, I'll dig that up, but go ahead.
Yeah. And exactly what you're saying, I think, speaks more to what we were talking about earlier. We're just making sure that everything that you use is able to be to function within itself, right? And that you're working with things that all are able to be integrated within one another, and how that's so important.
I was also going to add first, so attribution is a term that a lot of people use, and that's exactly what we're talking about here, right? So where do I attribute that lead to, right? If somebody does become a client. And one of the questions that I get a lot ties into what Will just kind of talked about, where he said, hey, look, maybe don't put all your eggs in one basket. Maybe you need to diversify too, right? So let's try different strategies to get new leads in. And I think from businesses that are just starting with small budgets, right, to businesses that are booming and have a budget to burn on marketing, you run into the issue where sometimes you'll want to test out a bunch of different types of marketing, right, and lead generation. And then, and so that may be, small budgets here, and 5 things. For larger businesses, that may be I'm doing billboard, I'm doing radio, I'm doing digital as well. And then the problem happens where, yes, you know that this person landed on your homepage from CallRail, right? But did their cousin see your billboard? Did their coworker hear you on the radio, right? How did you really get to this point? And which of my dollars spent on marketing do I really attribute this to? So one of the things I like to tell businesses when they're starting this, especially if you guys are starting out with your tracking process, is you don't have to give 100% attribution to one bucket of marketing. You can split it, right? So if someone ends up calling you and they say, hey, you know, I was Googling that I needed a hairdresser, right? And you popped up. But then I also remembered I had heard your name on the radio. That's why I clicked in. You can give 50% attribution. So 50% of that client's dollar value to the radio and 50% to your digital, your SEO, right? And that way, you know, like, I'm not going to cut this one off because it did bring in that client. It's really important to be able to attribute where everywhere it should be given. And so CallRail is great, right? To use that in conjunction with an answering service is the best case scenario, because one, you're seeing technically where that person landed and where they came from, but you also have a human that's answering the phone saying, oh yeah, but how did you hear about us? And then you might find out the backstory about the cousin who heard about you on the radio, right? And you put all that together and now you have your real attribution. So again, not relying heavily on one form. That intake is so important, that human talking.
Absolutely. So again, you mentioned the intake, and we know that that's one of the biggest issues that you're seeing with clients that come to you. So what type of issues or holes do you see in the intake process? I mean, there's one right there, asking the lead comes from.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But let's start there. What else do you
So,
see in that intake process that could be improved upon, or holes that clients are missing?
yeah, so I'm sure I'm not going to hit on all of them, but this is a big thing for sure. You know, with our clients in particular, hey, we can get you the leads, but then once you have them, it's really going to be dependent on how your intake is run as to if those leads are going to turn into dollars, like Will said earlier, right? So things that we often see when we're auditing, we can CallRail, you'll learn about this if you join the one next week, right? CallRail records the calls, so you're absolutely able to listen to your intake folks and say, oh, you know, this was a question that you asked us was great. Let's start doing that on all of them, or whatever it may be, right? But the biggest issue is we say, all right, we got you all these leads. What happened? No clients came out of 40 leads. There's a problem there. Oh, well, what does your intake look like? There's no standard operating procedure docs. There's nothing, right? There's not a process. There's not, maybe it's one person that's answering. It's the business owner. I answer all the calls. They come to my cell phone, but you know, at this time and this time, I don't answer the phone because I'm with my kids or I'm at dinner, right? That's understandable, but there's no rollover number, right? You are pigeonholing yourself to one person. So either not hiring enough people or outsourcing, the big issue, not having a process, not having, most importantly, questions, right? Having a set of questions that are going to actually get the information that you need, right? So there's, you know, questions on web forms that can be more of that AI system that I know that Jessica can probably talk more to with how Smith.ai does it. But even just when you have an intake person and you're doing training and you're teaching them what are the most important elements that you need to learn to figure out if this is even a client you want, right? Making sure you're always updating that questionnaire too, because things change, right? But I would love to hear your thoughts, Jessica, on like how you guys do the questionnaires for everyone, right? They're different, they're personalized to each firm on your chat side of things.
Right. So we do intake on, like you mentioned, both chat and inbound calls. And we really spend a lot of time learning about a business, learning about the ideal customer of a business, and what information a business needs to move forward with a client upfront. Like, what information do you need to make sure that they're a good fit both ways, to make sure they're a good fit for you and you're a good fit for them, and to make sure you have all the information needed. So whether we're asking in on the call, or if we're going to fill out that on a web form, a lot of times we will help a client build out the intake, and then they will use that same intake form that our agents use on a call on their website, because it's so good at qualifying.
Perfect, yeah.
If your website has name, phone number, generic giant text box that says, who are you and how can I help you? You're not doing yourself any favors, none, because you're just going to get flooded with information. And then a human is going to have to read through and filter through that information. Then you're going to have to categorize it somewhere. Then you're going to have to, Danielle said, separate viable leads from the duds. That's exactly right. You're going to have to separate the viable leads from the duds. But if you build your intake form in a way that helps you do that automatically, it's a lot easier. So by asking more pointed questions, very specific questions, what specifically are you looking for? What area of law are you looking for? You know, let's say it's home services. What's your budget? Are you a homeowner? What area code do you live in? Because is it area code or zip code? I don't know.
Yeah,
Zip
both,
right?
right?
Because if you're not in the right area, I live in Charlotte, North Carolina, and if I fill out a form accidentally for a contractor that lives in Alaska, I'm not a viable lead. And guess what? They can look at that web form and they can see right away, nope, that's not in my service area. So then going back to the AI, the automation, North Carolina is not in my service area. I can build automation that would automatically send this to my partner in North Carolina, make that referral. Hey, Joe in North Carolina, Jessica needs some help. Can you call her up? Heck yeah, let's do it. Or if I did live in Alaska, then I am a viable lead. I am the homeowner. I need some help. They can then either call me back right away, or again, going back to that automation, send that lead straight into Smith.ai, and Smith.ai makes the outbound call to qualify the lead, whatever that looks like. But you've got to build your intake, like I said, to make sure that you're qualifying those viable leads from the non-viable leads. So like I said, that I know what the websites say. I know that if you go online and you Google how to build a form online, it's going to say, ask 3 questions, name, phone number, email, and then what can I help you with? And it's going to say, keep it simple, because then you'll get more leads. No, you don't want quantity leads. You want quality leads. You want the leads that are actually going to do business with you. You want the leads that are actually going to convert and spend money. So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about perfecting that intake funnel. And by building out those very pointed and specific questions, you know, maybe it's a drop-down menu, you can then build that into the automation, whether it's on your website or whether it's a Smith.ai agent doing it, or whether it's a chat bot doing it. You can then use those fields, those keys and those data points to build out your automation. Is this a person looking for product A? Oh, cool. Now I can add them to product A mailing list. Product B, now they can go to product B mailing list. It's that simple. Like, but you've got to start with the basic questions. You've got to ask them different questions to get the information you need, not just in that text box, because then someone's got to sort through all that data and figure out where they go. So, all right, I'm done.
No, that last piece you just said, is exactly what I was going to say. The last piece of intake that I see is a big issue is not having an intake system, right? For all this information. So you have this nice web form to have that information go into a system. And exactly what you said, if you have drop downs, and I'm going to use an example for law, but again, concept's sake, right? If you're able to, let's say you're a personal injury lawyer and you want to separate your viables from your duds, but take it a step further. Now I want to separate my highest dollar potential client, my medium dollar, and then maybe one that I'll refer out. It's hey, drop down on what's your injury level, right? And there's certain types of injuries that will absolutely be more likely to pay out from an insurance company, right? So if they select that they have a catastrophic injury, then that goes into your system and it'll trigger it to be priority. You log in and you say, show me all my priorities that need callbacks right away, or that maybe the managing partner or the business owner should actually go call back because that's going to be my highest, most important leads. The system will do it for you, right? So absolutely, I think you can not only just separate just the duds from viable, but you can separate the viables to first priority, second priority, third priority viable too, which makes you money,
Yeah.
right?
There's so
That's
much
all
you can
it should
do.
be. Yeah.
And when you get to the point where you're asking those types of questions, you look more professional than everyone else because you're asking the questions you should be asking. When the other guys are just asking, what do you want? You look way more professional, like, because you are more professional. I mean, it's that simple. So, you know, not only making sure you're asking the right information, but once you start asking that information, you then have to make sure that information is going into the right place, which I think is kind of like the natural flow, what we wanted to talk about next anyways, which is, you know, it's making sure your intake is then, we go back to talking about AI and automation, is automatically flowing into whether it's your CRM or your case management software, or if your home services, your your, forget what they're called, but making sure it's all flowing into the solution that you're needing and that it's going where it needs to go, so that whenever those leads come in, you can start the next step, whether that is a lead drip funnel or outreach, sales outreach, whatever that looks like. So did you have anything else that you wanted to add there? No? All right.
Yeah, I think
So
we're pretty good there. I'm sure if people
yeah.
have questions, we're happy to.
Are there
expand
any,
them.
are there any questions about intake that anyone would like to put in the chat? Because this is something that, you know, we talk about a lot, and I know that I really feel passionately about and would love to answer any questions if there are any. All right. No questions, just like quiet.
You were
bunch.
that thorough in your explanation.
I guess that's a good thing. All right, let's keep moving along then. So I know a big part of your business and a big part of what you do is helping businesses audit their digital presence. So when you're doing that, what does that look like for a business? Like what should they be auditing?
Yeah, I can take this one because this is really something that I do day to day with our clients, weekly, even on a monthly basis. So the first thing that's going to be most important to look at, let's say that we're working with a new client, is figuring out where they're at right now, right? Like what is their current level look like on analytics? What are they bringing to the table? What sort of data do we have to work with? How's their current relationship with Google? And really just finding a baseline of where we're currently at. And then, yeah, so from there, what we'll really want to work with is Google Analytics is really the best place to start at. And really the first step that we'll do is take a look at the historical data there. So where are we today, as I mentioned, but also, you know, not where were we yesterday, but where were we 3 months ago? Where were we 6 months ago? And then inversely, you know, moving down the line, 3 months from now, where are we? 6 months from now, where are we? Where do we want to be? 1 year ago, and when, you know, 1 year into the future. So taking a look at that, where are we now? What are our goals for the future? But also, where are we coming from? And what does this progress look like? I think that, you know, a lot of times it's really important to remember that progress, you know, day to day is going to occur, but really what we're looking at is the bigger picture of things. 3 months, 6 months, a year, et cetera. So After that, we also want to make sure we're looking at the traffic sources. So we talk a lot about organic traffic, and that's going to be people who are coming into your site through Google. And that's really what we're going to look at. But we're also going to look at direct traffic and referral traffic as well, which are the other two sources that play a big role in your digital presence. And then taking it one step further from there and looking at page specific traffic. So are there any pages that are experiencing similar changes one way or another, right? That can be a good indicator of things that we need to work on. Is one page getting a lot more traffic than others? What can we do to make our other pages more like this page that's doing well? Is it adding more call to actions? Is it a specific way that the page is set up? And sort of figuring out a place to start so that we can see what's working for us, what isn't working for us, and move from there. We talked a lot about lead volume as well, which is obviously something we'll want to take a look at there. Where are we in terms of lead sources so that we have this benchmark to set? And what are our goals for growth? What's reasonable expectations over the next 3, 6, 12 months so that we can look back, X amount of time from now and say, hey, did we meet our goals or did we not meet our goals? So all of that is really where we'll start. And like I said, Google Analytics is the best place to start from an intro perspective, especially if it's something that you're doing yourself. Google Analytics is something that everybody can use. And if you are using Google Analytics, just as a reminder, they are switching over to their new GA4, which you have, I believe, until July 1st to go ahead and make sure you're fully integrated there, as just a heads up for everybody.
If you do not currently have Google Analytics plugged into your website, it is a free Google service, so you do not have to pay for it. Google Analytics, it's one of those tools that when you look at it, it looks big and scary, but I would definitely recommend, if you do not have it plugged into your site, get it plugged in. Because that information and that data is very, very valuable. Even if you're not going to use it today, you do want to have that historical data, especially if you're going to be looking at using any company like BluShark. I mean, yep. Absolutely plug it in. It is free. It will not hurt you to have it, even if you plug it in and never look at it. Okay.
Yeah. Absolutely. And even on top of that, they do offer, Google offers certification courses that are really, really easy to go through and do for analytics. I think you can get the first level of courses done and basically be, certified for Google Analytics in like 4 or 5 hours from a basic level. So it truly does get, very basic, but it can also get as niche as you want to go with it. And it's sort of one of those things where the deeper you want to go into the analytics, if you're an analytics nerd and somebody who really likes looking at the data, you really can get as specific and as deep as you want into it.
Oh yeah, you sure can. There was a question in the chat. Yay. So we mentioned Zapier and CallRail. Absolutely. And the question is, do we have any other cool tools that marketers benefit from?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a lot of newer products that are coming out that are a little bit AI as well. But I would love to know what Lynn's industry is. In terms of automation, there's that. There's also these programs that we were talking about that can transcribe, right? So calls and meetings. I think that those are really important and awesome. Doing high tech. Okay, yeah. So reporting, I know that we're using a new kind of dashboard where it can pull information from everything, but there are a few different products that are coming out. Truvi is one that I can think of off the top of my head, but what it does is it is a platform that you will open up and it is connected to your Google Analytics, your Google Ads, right? Your PPC. It's connected to any kind of social information. So all of your social metrics from Facebook and Instagram, and it's just basically every bucket. If you do radio, if you do TV, it's integrated. So you open up this platform and you're able to see all of your information across each of your channels. But then it takes it a step further and it analyzes based on your firm, how much you're spending, how many leads you're getting across each of these different channels. There is a projection tool that then says a projection tool that then says, based on all of this data, here's what we think you guys should expect to see in the next quarter. So it's really cool if you're doing, so it's TRUV. I'd have an E at the end of it, Truvi. And if you look into that, there are competitors to that for all different industries as well, right? But these dashboards are extremely helpful where they have an AI component, but it's also just bringing everything into one space. You log into one thing, right? And it can just make your life a lot easier. And that's not going to take away from your independent company. So BluShark has its own reporting every month, right? Essentially what would happen is that report would go into that platform you have, and then it would take all the information out of our report and it would put it into the system to figure out, well, okay, if you've done this for 5 months with them, here's what we want to see in month 6, 7, and 8. So that's one of those that I just think is really important for tracking.
Yeah, and it looks like Danielle had a question as well about the cost of Google certification. And the cost is, I believe it's free. The one that I have worked on with the past is Google Analytics Academy. And so I know that they offer courses ranging of all different kinds of levels from beginners to advanced. So that one's free, and it is run through Google. It's not through like a third party or anything. It's classes that Google does offer. So would definitely encourage everyone to take a look there, even if it's just to get a little bit of a baseline foundation.
And you don't have to go through all the modules, right? They give you a module on each thing. So you can learn about just paid ads. You can learn about this aspect, though. You can learn about the Google business profiles, whatever it is, and just do the modules and use them to teach yourself. Yeah.
So some of my favorite tools, not necessarily about automation or AI, but Ahrefs, Hotjar, and Figma are my faves. Like personally, I
Ahrefs I love. Yep.
Yeah, I use those.
Local Viking is another good one too. Local Viking, and that'll allow you to see how you're ranking compared to your competition, and it sort of grids it out into a bunch of different segments. So that's another great one to take a look at.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'd say my number one is Zapier. Like I could use Zapier to do a million things just all day long. You set it and forget it. Like sometimes I forget that it does things for me, and then I'm like, how is this happening? And I'm like, oh yeah, Zapier does that for me. That is probably my number one tool. Yeah, for sure. If you guys have tools that you like, please do put them in the chat for me. I love learning about new tools.
Absolutely. As we're kind of here just with I love that question because you learn from both ends here, right? So I agree with you. If people have them, they should drop them in there. But as we're here, it's just kind of tips now at this point, right? So I would kind of throw that to you, Jessica, too. What do you think if a small business that's listening right now is just kind of getting started? What should be their first step with lead generation for you? So first step now that they've opened a business.
So I actually had a very, very interesting conversation with a small business last week. I was at a trade show. Very, very small business, home services. They were doing a flooring. They had just started, and they said, what should we do? And the first thing I said, do you have a Google My Business profile? And the guy looked at me and goes, I don't know what that means. I do floors. And I was like, go home and set up a Google My Business profile. Like especially if you are a local business and you're servicing local clients, definitely the very first thing I would start with is setting up your Google My Business profile and trying not to bite off more than you can chew. Start off small and set small goals for yourself, right? Small stuff. Set up your Google My Business profile. Then, one day at a time, just set these small goals for yourself. That's where I would start.
And go ahead, Nalini.
No, I was just gonna say, and for those who don't know what the Google Business Profile is, right? That's when you type in your actual brand. Google will pull up this little nice thing, has some photos of you, and then Google has specific fields for them to learn information about your business. I like to call this the heart of your local SEO. If you don't fill in those fields, Google doesn't know who you are and what you do, so they can't really help connect you to your consumers, right? So that is important, but it will take a long time to get those to rank because you're gonna have to optimize and show that, yeah, you're consistently there. But then I throw that same question to you, Will. So once you've, gotten your Google Business Profile created, you let that sit there and, earn its way up to actually showing on page one. What's your advice for, a business that's trying to just get some leads in the door? What's the first thing they could do?
Yeah, so let's say you already have your Google Business Profile set up. Obviously, you want to make sure you have your website set up and that everything's clean there. But if you're kind of looking to take it one step further, something that I think is super beneficial that you can do really by yourself even is what's called local service ads. So they offer local service ads in the home industry, in the legal industry. They offer them for a large variety of industries across the board. And really what local service ads are is it's a form of advertisement. So a lot of you guys might be familiar with PPC. Local service ads are similar to PPC, but they operate in a different payment structure. So instead of paying for each click that goes through to your site, you're actually paying for each lead that comes through. So that's beneficial for a variety of different reasons. Mainly, you know that you aren't going to be spending a ton of money on clicks and not getting anything out of it. These leads that are going to come in through local service ads, you are only paying for the actual calls that you're receiving. So it's beneficial from that standpoint in that you're only paying for the calls that you do receive. Local service ads are fairly simple to set up. It's something that you can really go in and do yourself and set up over the course of the day. You just kind of set the budget you have to work with and the areas that you want to advertise in, and that's sort of all the steps you really need to do. And of course, there's different ways of strategizing there and different sort of things you can do to potentially maximize your leads. But in terms of getting it set up, it's fairly simple. And then something else that's great that local service ads offers is the ability to dispute leads. So let's say that you're a personal injury firm and somebody calls you with a criminal case. You can actually go in and say, hey, this isn't a target that I was advertising for. These people, mistakenly called me. I don't want to pay for this lead. And they'll go in and as long as it's approved, it will refund you the money for that spend towards future months. So it truly is something that I recommend across the board if that's something that people are looking to get more leads out of.
And I full circle, right? When we talk about that, and you just said there's ways that you can optimize this. It is a pay to play, which means people who are bidding high are likely going to get the visibility. They only show 3 at the top of page 1. But one of the biggest factors there is how often are you answering those calls? Are you dropping any calls? And by dropping one or not answering a call, you can be put into a Google jail for X number of days where your ad that you're trying to get cases from, right, won't show. So Smith.ai, any kind of answering service who you can depend on to actually pick up those calls and get you the information is going to be extremely important in how much you get out of a LSA campaign. You have to have someone answering the phone. It is a factor.
That's very true. All right, well, we have actually reached our time. So any final questions, put them in the chat. We don't want anyone to leave without getting their questions answered. I will also make sure we put contact information in the chat. That way, if anyone wants to contact either of us, either BluShark Digital or Smith.ai, you'll have that in the chat. I'm also going to send an email after with the contact information. So if you miss it, I'll send that out. But if you don't have any questions, thank you so much for attending. I appreciate you coming today. We do these types of webinars about 2 or 3 times a month. So keep an eye out on your email if you want to come to another one. We have that call rail webinar next, I think it's next Wednesday. So make sure you come to that as well. Thanks everyone and have a great day.
Thank you for having us, Jessica.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica.
It has been a pleasure. Oh, that was much longer than I thought it would be. My little boilerplate.
Very good. All right, well, we'll be in touch. Thank you again. We'll see you in a bit.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.